From the Equatorial Broadcast Radio, I'm Michael Arden. Tonight, the map of the Middle East is shifting in real time. A coordinated military campaign by the United States and Israel against Iran, the reported killing of Iran's supreme leader, and retaliatory strikes across multiple countries have pushed the region into one of its most dangerous periods in decades. The operations, their stated objectives, and the growing civilian toll are raising urgent questions about where this conflict goes next.
I'm Claire Whitfield. In the past several days, American and Israeli forces have launched named operations designed to degrade Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities, while Iran has answered with waves of missiles and drones aimed at Israel and at U.S. bases around the Gulf. Cities far from the initial targets, from Tel Aviv to Dubai and Doha, are now feeling the effects. Our international affairs correspondent, Sofia Delacruz, has been following the developments and the wider implications.
The current phase of this crisis began on February 28, when the United States and Israel opened a coordinated series of strikes across Iran. On the Israeli side, officials described their part of the campaign as Operation Roaring Lion. The Pentagon has labeled the American component Operation Epic Fury. Together, they form a joint, large-scale effort to hit Iran's leadership, ballistic missile infrastructure, air defenses, and elements of its nuclear and command systems. One of the most consequential strikes hit the office compound of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in Tehran. Iranian authorities, along with multiple foreign outlets citing officials and security sources, now say Khamenei was killed in that attack at the age of 86. He had served as supreme leader since 1989, making him the dominant figure in the Islamic Republic's political, religious, and military life for more than 35 years. In response, Iran has declared 40 days of official mourning and installed an interim leadership structure while it begins the process of choosing a successor. The military scope inside Iran has been wide. Iranian officials report that strikes have hit targets in 24 of the country's 31 provinces. Those targets include air defense sites, missile depots and launch facilities, Revolutionary Guard bases, and infrastructure tied to Iran's nuclear program and command and control network. In addition to these strategic objectives, there has been significant civilian harm. One of the deadliest single incidents occurred in Hormozgan province, where a girls' elementary school was struck. Local authorities report a very high death toll among children, teachers, and parents, with many more injured. Images of that scene have circulated widely, and the attack is already shaping public perceptions of this campaign, both inside Iran and abroad. Iran's response has been rapid and expansive. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says it has launched multiple waves of ballistic missiles and drones at Israeli territory and at U.S. facilities across the region. Iranian officials claim to have targeted dozens of American bases, though many of those claims have not yet been independently verified. What is clear, however, is that the geographic footprint of this conflict now extends across much of the Middle East. In Israel, air raid sirens and interceptor launches have become frequent over major cities. Authorities have reported deaths and injuries from missile impacts, including a woman killed near Tel Aviv and additional casualties after residential buildings were hit in locations such as Beit Shemesh. Footage from affected neighborhoods shows damaged apartment blocks, burned-out vehicles, and emergency crews working through smoke and debris. Several Gulf states, although not parties to the conflict in the same way, have found themselves on the front line because they host U.S. military infrastructure and lie within the range of Iranian missiles and drones. In the United Arab Emirates, debris from intercepted projectiles has caused fires and damage in and around Dubai, including at the port of Jebel Ali. In Qatar, officials in Doha report injuries and property damage after explosions and falling debris in the capital. In Bahrain, home to the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, missile alerts and interceptions have been reported. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan have also activated air defenses as projectiles cross their airspace. The maritime domain has become another area of concern. Off the coast of Oman, an oil tanker under U.S. sanctions was struck, injuring crew members and highlighting how quickly the conflict is affecting commercial shipping. Iranian authorities have also signaled efforts to restrict or close the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which a significant share of the world's traded oil and gas moves. Even the threat of disruption there has implications for energy prices, shipping insurance, and the broader global economy. Washington and Jerusalem present this campaign as a necessary step to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to reduce its capacity to project power through missiles and regional proxies. Officials speak of degrading Iran's ballistic missile inventory, weakening its air defenses, and targeting the leadership and infrastructure of the Revolutionary Guard. The killing of Khamenei and other senior figures is described by supporters of the operation as removing key decision-makers behind Iran's regional posture. President Donald Trump has gone further in his public rhetoric, urging Iranians to take control of their government and portraying the strikes as an opportunity for domestic change. Tehran frames the events very differently. Iranian leaders describe the U.S.-Israeli campaign as an act of aggression and a violation of national sovereignty. State media emphasize both the scale of the destruction and the images of crowds mourning Khamenei. Military broadcasts highlight missile launches and interceptions as proof that Iran remains capable of imposing costs on its adversaries. Officials have vowed to retaliate not only against Israel and the United States, but also against any regional governments they accuse of facilitating the operations. At the United Nations Security Council, these competing narratives are on full display. The United States defends its actions as defensive and proportionate, aimed at preventing an unacceptable nuclear and missile threat. Russia and China condemn the strikes as illegal aggression against a sovereign state. The UN Secretary-General has warned that the conflict risks triggering a broader regional war that could be difficult, if not impossible, to contain. European governments have adopted a cautious stance. They criticize Iran's missile attacks on neighboring states and on civilian areas, while also expressing deep concern about the scale and targeting of the U.S.-Israeli campaign. Several are calling for immediate de-escalation and renewed diplomacy, though the ongoing exchange of fire leaves little space for negotiations in the near term. Across parts of the Muslim world and the wider global south, large street demonstrations have emerged, condemning the killing of Iran's supreme leader and the high civilian death toll within Iran. Inside Iran, the political consequences of Khamenei's death are only beginning to emerge. The system he shaped over decades concentrated authority in the office of the supreme leader and in networks linked to the Revolutionary Guard, the religious establishment, and the economic elite. With a temporary leadership arrangement now in place, the process of selecting a successor is likely to reveal internal tensions that were previously managed out of public view. Analysts expect the Revolutionary Guard to play an even more prominent role in both the succession process and the state's response to external pressure. For the broader region, this conflict is already forcing a reassessment of security assumptions. Israel faces direct, large-scale missile and drone attacks from Iranian territory, not just from allied militias. Gulf monarchies must weigh the benefits and risks of hosting U.S. forces as their territory and urban centers come under fire or fall within potential strike zones. Shipping companies and energy markets are recalculating routes, costs, and risks in light of potential disruption in and around the Strait of Hormuz. For now, the fighting continues. Each new wave of strikes and counterstrikes increases the risk of miscalculation and further escalation. The longer the exchanges persist, the harder it will be for any future diplomatic initiative to address not only Iran's nuclear program, but also the broader web of security fears, alliances, and grievances that have led to this point.
That was our international affairs correspondent, Sofia Delacruz, with an overview of the U.S.-Israeli campaign against Iran, Tehran's response, and the expanding regional fallout. The military, political, and humanitarian effects of this conflict are still unfolding, and we will continue to follow them closely. For the Equatorial Broadcast, I'm Michael Arden.